And welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We're talking with Ted Ziegenbusch, and he discussed his early years at Coast 103.5 as well as his family. Now, before we left, I teased you with the question, did Ted's kids follow in their father's footsteps and get into radio? Well, Ted, thanks for, again, being with us. And did your kids get into radio, too?
No, Ryan, my youngest son, almost did. He went through the program at Fullerton City College, got the full certificate, worked with some great people, actually was on the air there doing news and stuff, and considered being, account executive. He's always wanted to be a salesman from the time that he was 3 years old. And he would come with us to the meetings at Coast, and he would meet the salespeople and hang out with them. He always decided he liked those people, and he wanted to be a salesman too. But when he got all of his degrees and everything, he started talking to some of the account executives, that worked at Coast in different places, and they said, "No, figure out something else to do. This is tough. It's so tough, to make commission and make your month. And, why don't you want to be, and, that's a whole other chapter in a book. But Ryan came as close as you can possibly come to becoming a talk show host for KABC.
Wow.
They were going to hire young people to do a weekend show on, I believe it was Sunday nights, where three people would banter about politics and current events and things like that. And they interviewed over 300 people, became their final group. And Ryan was one of the three people that was chosen to do the show. And I was told by the then program director that when they took this idea to legal for ABC, the legal department said, "You're thinking of doing what?" But these people aren't 21; they're underage, and the liabilities of what they say, what you can make them do, what they might get themselves into, you're opening a whole can of worms. Yeah, but we think it's a great idea. Well, we think it's a stupid idea.
Oh, man.
So they called him. Eric Braverman was the PD at the time, and Eric said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, Ryan, but it's not you. They've decided not to do this." And he was crushed, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of thought he was following in Dad's footsteps, but no. So he's doing extremely well. He helps seniors with their assisted living needs, placement. So he is in sales in some respect, but he had lots of fun and doesn't regret going through the program and understanding what Dad did and what coulda, shoulda, woulda. He worked for XM Sirius, as you probably know.
Yeah, we worked together there for a
while and worked other places. But he didn't have a strong desire to be a personality. He saw the perks and saw the benefits, of being in the business, and he didn't hear too many complaints from Dad about the rough times. But no, I think he picked the right route for him. But that's the one that came closest. The funny thing is, all three of my sons are in some form of advertising or marketing. So
the thing they were begged not to get into, or they said, "Don't do this, don't do this."
Yeah, don't do radio.
By the way, since you got to do those love songs on the Coast concerts, who was your favorite artist that you ever got to meet? Maybe there's a couple of them that just really stood out, just as far as just nice person. It felt like an old friend of yours.
Wow. Trying to think back. Because, are you talking about specifically Coast or Anytime?
Or Anytime.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Little River Band was a hoot because I was going to introduce them on stage, and so we were introduced to the guys, my wife and I, and they said, "Hey, well, come on backstage. We're going to warm up." And we said, "Oh, okay," because most artists don't invite you back to their dressing room. So they invited us backstage, and they gathered around the piano, and they started singing bits and pieces of their songs. So here my wife and I are singing Happy Anniversary Baby and, all the songs. And so that was fun. They were really nice. Alan Parsons was one of the most genuine, nicest, down-to-earth guys I'd ever met. Not pretentious, just, I told him about my days of playing his music early on in his career and my career, and how much I appreciated his creativity and talents, and said thank you. But it wasn't like he could get rid of me. I mean, we sat there and just kind of talked about life in general, waiting for the opportunity for him to go on stage. He was playing with Air Supply. Nice bill of those two. But River Band sticks out. Air Supply. Amy Grant was really nice, but we could tell that her mind was on something else. We met her during sound check and warm up and everything in the afternoon before a nighttime show, and it was a brief encounter. It was fun, because I mean, who wouldn't want to meet, somebody like Amy Grant?
Oh yeah. But I remember a couple of years ago here at the station, she came in. I forget what the moment was or what the event was, but she was friendly, but you could tell she was kind of shy, and had that kind of friendly, shy type of persona, but she let us take pictures with her. I'm not sure where the photograph is now, but it was cool. And then I think as far as myself with celebrities, I've gone to several game show conventions, and Pat Carroll was one of the nicest people I ever met.
Oh, yeah.
Henry Polk II, and then Larry Anderson, who's a magician and actor. He played David Hasselhoff's previous identity, Michael Long, on the pilot of Knight Rider, where they just permed his hair curly and dubbed him with David Hasselhoff's voice. So he decided to go uncredited for that, and I said, well, if it's any consolation, the lady who played the villain was also dubbed, and he said, no comment.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a surprise.
By the way, did you ever get to meet Dick Clark? Because he was a spokesperson of Coast for years.
Yeah, I worked for Dick on a pilot. They hired me to be the host of what was going to be a nighttime strip. We were going to be on Monday through Friday after the 11 o'clock news. And we actually got quite a few affiliates. We were going to be on Channel 9 at 11:30, and we had Chicago and Seattle and Dallas and other markets, and they couldn't get anybody in New York to agree to running the show after seeing our pilot. They said they wanted something more like Howard Stern. And to which Dick Clark said, I don't do anything like Howard Stern. And they said, well, we want something kind of sharp and edgy after the news. And he said, well, then it's not this show. Because we were going to do, romance videos, people asking other people out for a date, people, proposing, people. It was very much along the love songs line, but with video and pre-recorded videos, so people felt comfortable and not necessarily on live TV.
Wow.
So I guess it would be like America's Funniest Videos, but America's Most Romantic Videos. And the only reason I've talked to the producer, Steve Binder, that did the Elvis 1968 comeback and the Tammy shows and other shows. He did the Diana Ross concert from Central Park and different things over the decades. Steve said Yeah, it's too bad, but the fact of the matter is, without New York City, because, New York City's a market of like 15.5 million people, just that city. Without TV stations bigger than Chicago, we couldn't count on making money with the show. So sorry, but it was a no-go, And so that was one of the hard pills to swallow. Was we thought we'd done everything right. We looked like, and again, Dick Clark sat across from me. I was lucky enough to just have one-on-ones in his office a few times where nobody else was around, just the two of us, where I figured he would be the most honest. And he looked at me one day and he said, "Ted, this is your wheel of fortune." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You will be doing this show forever." It's kind of like the Liz Kiley thing.
Yeah.
Liz said. Dick really thought that we would have the support, of stations and advertisers to the point that it would go, for years. And, sadly, it didn't happen. And years later, Steve Bender says, "Hey, don't kick yourself. You did everything right. It was just a matter of dollars and cents and all of that." So, okay, but, still, what could have been?
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like a great format because, there were Love Connection came on, which wasn't love songs. It was just, matching on video. And then there was a really weird show that Dave Hall, the Hullabalooer, hosted called Matchmaker. But the weird thing about that show was that it was shown at 2 a.m. in Los Angeles. I'm not sure how many other affiliates it cleared nationwide. And basically, he never saw the couples. He just heard their stories, and then he'd matchmake them without even seeing what either person looked like. And so I don't think he even used his name. He's just like, "I am the matchmaker." It was kind of a weird show. And then for a couple of weeks, Jimmy Walker was filling in, and some game show, fans said, "Would you really want Jimmy Walker or JJ from Good Times being your matchmaker?"
Yeah.
But because Dick Clark, my goodness, what a just programming genius that guy was, and with American Bandstand, and and the way he was able to handle things. I remember back in '73, he came up with a show called Soul Unlimited, which was kind of like his version of Soul Train. And after one episode, the African American community got upset that he was doing this. You're going to take away audience from Soul Train, even though you're not competing directly against them. So he agreed not to continue the show, although he did show the 3 remaining episodes, which were hosted by Buster Jones, as part of like an American Bandstand Soul Unlimited special. He built this brand new set that was just really beautiful for this show that only lasted 4 episodes. So what he did is he took the set and got rid of the Soul Unlimited sign and put the AB sign there, and that became the new set for American Bandstand.
Ah. Wow.
Well, Ted, I actually have one question for you. What's the best advice you got from one of the mentors that you got to work with as far as radio is concerned?
Well, Dave McCormick, that was my first program director, and, knew I was green and new. He said to me, "Ted, let me explain, my concept here. You're not announcing to people. You're not, doing a commercial, promoting a product. You're just being their friend. And you've got people at home doing homework. You've got people in their car. You don't know where people are listening to you. But basically, you're just painting pictures. And just imagine that you're sitting in your living room and you got your phonograph, your record player over to the side, and you've got a stack of records that are your favorite songs. And you're just putting them on one by one saying, here's one I really like. And you're just filling in with conversation in between. And so make it just like a couple of friends sitting around in your den or in your home, in the living room, listening to music, and they'll look at you as a friend, and you just keep that in mind, that you're talking to a friend. And I said, oh, okay. That was good advice. And Johnny Kaye gave me all kinds of advice, over the years. But one of the best things he did was, especially when it got to the point where we were on Love Songs, talking for extended periods of time, longer than many people were used to hearing on the radio, he said, you need to do a camera change. And I think more than one, somebody was in the room with me, whether it was Karen or Liz or somebody. And could you explain that? Well, you need to pause when you're changing subjects or changing gears or changing thoughts. Can't see your eyes, they can't see your face, they don't know what your expression is, but they can hear in your voice. So it's like with your voice, you're doing a camera change from this camera you're looking at, and you're turning and saying, now over here, and do that with your voice when you're in a long, stop set after commercials, or when you're talking to somebody on the phone. Just remember that to keep from getting monotone and sounding like you're falling asleep. Change the emphasis, change that look at the camera. Okay, got that. Understand. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
This is the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We've been talking with Ted Ziegenbusch, and some great stories. Any advice to people who want to break into broadcasting from you?
Just, if you love it and you love the opportunity to do it, don't think in terms of, that's not my kind of music, that's not my kind of station, that's not my kind of job. I can understand if after a while the people you're working with, you go, those are not my kind of people. Yeah, I can understand looking for another job. But, Mark Dennis, who not only was a friend over the years, but a mentor from my early days at Cayman when he was the all-night guy, he said, no job is too small. They're only small people. They're not small jobs. And with that, he meant, if you love being on the radio, and proof positive with me, I jumped from a top 40 station to playing big band music and Andy Williams and Mitch Miller and things that my parents listened to that I wouldn't have been caught dead, listening to. But it was a job, and it was an opportunity, and I knew I was going to learn, and it would lead to something else. And I guess you do have to know when the time is right to move on. Sometimes that's not always of your own choosing. But hey, it's like if you love baseball and you can't play professionally, if you still love baseball, well, then play on a weekend team or play on a pickup team. Or, if your goal as a radio personality is to make it to a big city, there are small steps along the way. It's not a giant leap, and there really are too many people who want things to happen quickly. I was talking to my wife the other night, and I still think back to all the college when we were in our 20s and at San Bernardino Valley College, and all the people that took the radio and TV program there, and so many of them that were really good. And some of them got weekend jobs on TV or on radio, but they didn't stick it out, And I said, some of them, I think they gave up too soon. And my wife's right, well, you have to make a living, and you make choices, and sometimes getting married or having kids, or you pick another vocation, whether it's a factory worker or working for the post office or being a teacher or whatever. It's a shame that their first love, the thing that they were passionate about, didn't work out. But it can't for everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, all of us in Little League think we're going to be playing on the Dodgers or the Angels if we grow up in Southern California. But the reality is probably not going to happen. I mean, really a small percentage, even in Orange County, mm-hmm. where we have great, colleges and baseball players, and USC and Cal State Fullerton. And, it's a very small percentage of people that make it. But, hey, if you love it, stick with it until, you don't love it or decide it's time to move on. But one of my mentors, Johnny Helm, I said, what did you see in me? What made you believe in me when I was the young kid just hanging around? You were a great mentor. And he said, I saw the passion, and you were willing to do anything. You were willing to spend an hour just watching me and learning stuff without needing to do anything but soak it all up. And I could see the passion in your eyes, that this was something you wanted to do. And there were other fans who came by and other people I met and other people who thought they wanted to be in radio. But I could tell that you really had the passion for it. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I was just kind of curious because, he was one of the main catalysts into my success. Any one of the guys along the way could have dropped the ball and said, get out of here, kid. I mean, Johnny Darren picked it up when Bill Watson and Brian Lord had left Cayman. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm the kid who, I didn't call myself a kid probably, but I said, I'm the guy who comes around and helps you guys out. And now everybody I know is gone. And Johnny Darren looked at me and he said, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And I thought, wow, that was the neatest thing. And he did. He gave me records and things. He said, did Brian pay you for that? No. Did they take care of you for that? No. Well, here, let me get you some stuff here and take care of you, And, you just, mentors are critical. So I always say you never know who your mentor is going to be when you walk into a station. So don't burn bridges or say the wrong thing too early. That may be the guy who will get your first job on the radio. So.
Exactly. Ted, thank you for interviewing here, and this is great. Some great stories, and this is Josh Jacobs for the Talking Archive, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Josh.
Ted and I had such a great conversation. We forgot to talk about the fact we worked together for 5 years at 95.9 The Fish. I was overnights, and he was mornings, and the Ted and Lauren in the Morning show with Lauren Kitchens, which was on from 2001 to 2004. And then Ted did middays for the next 2 years there at The Fish, which, of course, is an Anaheim signal. And the cool thing about it was that Lauren would oftentimes, every month or so, would have gatherings, whether it was at her house or at a restaurant. And Ted and his wife, April, were always there. It was a honor to hang out with them, with Lauren and a bunch of other coworkers. It's definitely days that I miss. In fact, the picture at the beginning of this interview is me with Ted and his wife, April, and Lauren and her husband, Robin, at our most recent gathering a couple of years ago.